The Niners have to reverse a brain drain. This is the greatest opportunity they've had in at least a couple of years to bring in new ideas. Kyle Shanahan and the Niners have had so much success, and they every offseason have lost coaches on the offensive staff. They have played long into the season, and they have not had opportunities to do anything but bring in a defensive coordinator that'll just do our thing. He hired Robert Saleh when he started. Great. Then he promoted DeMeco Ryans from within. Great. Both of those worked. Then they brought Steve Wilkes in late after the NFC Championship game and basically told him, just do what we've been doing. And when the players didn't love that it didn't feel the way like it felt with DeMeco, they made him do more of the stuff. We're going to move you. You don't want to be in the field. You want to be in the booth. We're going to move you around. Do what we do. Then they hired from within again, Nick Sorensen. This is not an environment that has fed from that perspective. Now, they did do the Brandon Staley thing, but has not been hey, I'm evaluating you from the outside. Let me come in, Kyle, and tell you how I would do things differently and help. Kyle Shanahan, in the most significant thing he said on Wednesday, said he's open to that. And in fact, I think appeared to be excited about it. Tim Kawakami asked him, basically, your last two defensive coordinators have been one and done. Is there something going wrong in the process? His answer was, I didn't want to hire either of those guys. Oh, no, that's not what he said. He didn't say that. What he said was, well, it's an easier process doing this now in early January. It's been harder where we were with the last two in February, hiring after the Super Bowl, hiring after the NFC Championship game. You're one of the last teams to finish, or one of the four last teams to finish. So he didn't say I didn't want to hire those guys. But what he's saying is, now I'm going to get a chance to really evaluate a wide pool of people. He said he wants to have the ability to hire a guy who's got a history of changing things on the fly if things don't go well. Players get hurt. Okay, experienced guy. Note that. He did say, internally, there's one candidate. I'll give Staley a shot. But I didn't take that at all in any way that made me think that Brandon Staley will be the next defensive coordinator or has a great chance of being the next defensive coordinator. But he was asked what he's looking for. And is he open to different schemes? And he said, quote, unquote, yeah, I'm open to anything. Now, you can say that. We'll see who he brings into interview. But he did seem to be excited about the possibility of having somebody come in and given a presentation on how they would use his personnel. Give me a presentation of what you're going to do with our team. Anybody who has any interest in learning, and all these coaches do because they're stealing plays from each other all the time. So, the idea of like having Robert Saleh interview after Robert Saleh's not only been the Jets coach for that, forget that. Kyle's going to be more interested in the time that he's spending right now consulting with the Packers and Jeff Hafley. The Niners had lost out on the chance to hire Hafley because the Packers were done before them. The Hafley would have been a really good candidate when he was the Boston College head coach. So now the Packers defensive coordinator. So you're going to learn things about your team, how people think they can attack you, where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are. And he has not had, the 49, there has not been the opportunity. Now, whether Kyle Shanahan does it is different. He's got to follow through with this and do it this way. But he has not had the opportunity to really bring in a significant way, new ideas that they'll execute now with a lot more time to prepare for a season in several years. And if he's open to it, it sounds like he's open to it. That's very significant. They also said Dre Greenlaw, he's not gone yet. There was some stuff. There was a going away party. Some of the wives threw, girlfriends threw. They said, hey, hold on. Dre Greenlaw's not done yet. We're doing everything in the world we can to bring Greenlaw back. The tough thing with Greenlaw is that even though he's coming off a significant injury, there are other coaches out there that believe in him. There are other coaches out there like DeMeco Ryans, potentially like Robert Saleh if he's somewhere else, who have been around Dre Greenlaw and see a value in Dre Greenlaw and might be willing to pay a little more than most organizations would be willing to pay for a guy coming off the Achilles injury and then a calf tweak that could be related. I hope it's not related, that sort of thing. So that's significant. That will make it a little more difficult for the Niners. I mentioned this the other day. I've mentioned it a couple of times. Not surprising. Nick Sorensen's still under contract. Kyle Shanahan said, we'd like to have him back in some way, and acknowledged that he might be a candidate for the special teams job. He's done that once before. It was interesting. Tim Kawakami said, Kyle, you don't take a real detailed interest in special teams. And John Lynch leapt to his defense as Kyle was kind of smirking, going like, yeah, you Tim's not wrong. He said, what do you mean I don't take an interest in special teams? His answer, he said, well, we signed George Odom. We spent money there. Flanagan Foles, those are special teams investments. Special teams is important to me. He said, we had a lot of challenges this year. Injuries affect the roster, offense and defense, depth, punter issues, injuries, kicker injuries, all that stuff. And then he said, you can't change the whole thing out. And Brian Schneider ends up being the fall guy for that, the special teams coach. Which, it's hard to know. Is Kyle watching special teams going, oh, I see this flaw, this flaw, this flaw. We're all watching it going, you're getting beat by fakes constantly, it feels like, at a very high rate. Coverage bust, blah, blah, blah. It's rare that a game doesn't have a bunch of problems. But, this I go back to, since it's a question Kawakami asked once upon a time, I think it's something, maybe Jed York said this one, you can't fire the owner, which, was not, you didn't get a lot of love for that comment, but it's true. And if you're mad at the special teams, the coach ain't firing him. The head coach ain't firing himself. So they had to do it. But it was interesting to hear Kyle say, and Brian ends up being the fall guy for that. Anybody, it is a great strength to know your weaknesses. And I thought in Kyle's answer, he acknowledged, even though Lynch defended him, like, yeah, I don't. He basically said, this is what I get for being so honest with you guys, where I tell you guys, like, I don't love watching the kickers. But it is a strength to know your weaknesses. So, you don't know exactly who's not under contract right now, right? You can go pay another coach who's a highly paid special teams coach, but only if he's not under contract. If he's under contract, you can't go steal him away. So it gets challenging. But he got killed by it multiple times. And this is the first year with the new kickoff rules, which, my guess coming into the year was the offensive coaches like Kyle would just want to not return it, not have any fumbles, not have any, just give me the ball and let's go. But as we saw, you don't really get to operate that way. That's easier said than done. But another opportunity, just like on defense, how open-minded can you be? How many new ideas can you really get on special teams? Is there an awareness that comes with all these fakes? Is that just the head coach being aware? Like, hey guys, fake coming. Does he need to focus after an offensive, after you think your defense got to stop and your defense is off the field on third down, now it's fourth down. You start preparing to call the first down play. Is that a function of your head coach being your play caller? Is he not paying as close attention on fourth down and short and fake punt situations because he's preparing for his first down call after the punt? Does he need to give Clay Kubiak the first down call after every punt, just the first down call? It's crazy. It's a silly idea that I'm giving here, but he just officially, Clay Kubiak is the offensive. Now technically he's going to be the offensive coordinator. That's a new title for him. Kyle is still calling plays. He gave some insight into what the chatter on the headset's like. Clay's always we're all talking. Thought that was insightful that he shared that. But is it as simple as after third down stops, the head coach needs to be more focused on what's happening? Is that why you're getting beat on special teams, fourth down fake punts? Something to consider. So that's theme number one, reversing the brain drain. Is Kyle Shanahan, one of the biggest questions of this offseason, is Kyle Shanahan going to find the right defensive coordinator? That's one of the biggest questions in the whole league. And more specifically, is he going to hire somebody who will want to do something different than what he has historically done? That doesn't mean probably wholesale changes. You probably still have to work with the wide nine. He was asked about it, didn't really give an answer other than, it's personnel and scheme for sure. But, it would be such a success for them if they could hire somebody who is not just the head coach of the defense, but has the confidence that Kyle Shanahan has the confidence truly in that this guy can just go work in the lab alone and let me go be the head coach and the offensive coordinator and take some of that off my plate. It's huge. And special teams, the same. Brock Purdy. What did we learn? Well, they said the right things. What we know about Brock is he's our guy. He's here for a long time. That was John Lynch. Kyle, I plan on being here with Brock the whole time. Capable of winning the Super Bowl with him, I know, because we almost done it. And he's capable of winning a Super Bowl in the future for the 49ers. I think that last part, I've been asked this a lot, just by friends, not just by, YouTube comments or whatever. I do think he's capable of winning a Super Bowl, in part because I saw him almost do it. But there are a lot of other things that go with that: defense, offensive, run game, skill guys, all that stuff, right? What I would say is I do not take these comments. We know that Brock's our guy. We want him here for a long time. I plan on Brock being here the whole time I'm here. I don't take those to mean much, other than I don't think we're going to see Kirk Cousins. I don't think we're going to see Aaron Rodgers. I don't think they're doing any of that stuff this offseason. I don't think they're messing with it. I don't think they're even, as long as Brock's healthy, I don't even think they're kicking the tires on it. I don't think there's going to be any Aaron Rodgers tire kicking. I don't think there's going to be any Kirk Cousins tire kicking. Although, you know what I've said about the Niners a lot, like the one thing to remember about these guys, this marriage between the two of them started on a blind phone call. Like, hey, Kyle, it's John Lynch. Would you consider maybe I'd be your GM? And I just always say, keep that in the back of your mind when you think they're just a cold call. They're not opposed to it. They're open to it. They turn over every rock and kick every tire. But I don't think they're doing that this offseason. They can't mess around. They got to pay Brock whatever. They have to pay Brock an amount of money that makes them comfortable. And part of doing that is not pissing them off by kicking the tires on Kirk Cousins. If you want them to. So now that said, it'll be here as long as I'm here. I don't know about that. You hope that, but I think he wants to believe, he hopes that too. That's what he's planning for right now. I think he's planning for that, sure, but I don't think that really means anything. I did think there was a really interesting question. This stat was crazy. Cam Inman, who's been on the show many times, it's at the top of his bio, among being an author and a long time, very experienced, a very good reporter. 165-88, the Niners have been outscored in the fourth quarter. And he said, hey, last time you guys were here, you said we got to find finishers. And then you didn't finish in the fourth quarter. What's that about? Wasn't a great answer to that. It's a tough question to answer. I don't know how you answer it, other than John Lynch said, a lot of our finishers were hurt, whatever. But to me, that is partly the quarterback, right? That is part of the quarterback's job. When you're going to, the best guys, they help you overcome injuries. They make up for mistakes, bad play calls. That's what Patrick Mahomes does, right? That's what Josh Allen does. That's what Lamar Jackson. We'll see if Lamar does in the playoffs this year, but that's what Burrow did this year, right? Bad defense. So I still think that's a big question for Purdy, and the coach can't get on the field and play. He can make play calls. Some of them are good. Some of them are bad. So I think the biggest thing a coach needs is it's good when the coach and the play and the quarterback are different. It's good when the coach and the quarterback are a little different. Like when the coach maybe doesn't take a lot of chances, but the quarterback takes some. Kyle Shanahan. This is where this is kind of a hole in the Niners. Is Kyle's system has not come from behind. We know this. The data's there. They don't come from behind the fourth quarter. And Brock's style of play, because he's not a big arm, quick strike guy, is not come from behind. So that's a hole. Some team, you have strength, you have weaknesses. That's a weakness of the 49ers. That Kyle and Brock fit together really well in some ways. You got to be smart. You got to be tough. It's the Shanahan system can maximize a quarterback, but you still have to be a really good quarterback to be able to maximize it. And Brock has a lot of really impressive strengths that are rare. But the two of them got to find a way to overcome the fact that they each have a similar weakness. And, it puts the Niners in a tough spot when they're not playing from ahead. So that is just a weakness they have to overcome. I don't think there's really any denying that. And maybe part of that is Brock getting better. Maybe it's personnel. We'll see. We'll see. Accountability. There was only one. This was important. And now this is a quote. This is the one piece of audio I'll play here because people are always asking this, like, who is holding Kyle accountable? We got to hold him accountable. And I always laugh like, oh, okay, so tweet some more. What are you going to do? It's the owner's job, and the GM is not his boss technically, but it's important that he has a GM in the case of John Lynch that he respects, who can tell him things like, you are screwing up. And I thought this was a good one to hear in his own
like
voice.
Jed, with how his parents are. Like, it's just, I've never sat, like, I can always just tell what I think from a football standpoint, and I know I'm going to get from John what he thinks from his football standpoint. It's not always the most fun answer. You got to admit a lot that you didn't do right, but that's the truth of it, and that's the only way that you can consistently overcome things and find a way to consistently be successful.
Okay, so he's saying John Lynch tells me things that aren't comfortable to hear, but that's why it's important that John Lynch is here. I just thought that was an important acknowledgement of this is how accountability works in this organization. This is how we do it. And I thought that was insightful. Now, it's important that John Lynch does it. It's important that Kyle is open to it. He's saying, well, if it comes from John Lynch, I'm open to it. You know, I think it's a window also into, like, what would happen if John Lynch was gone? How would he find another person who he can take shit from? I don't know. The Niners are lucky they don't have to find that out this year. Team building was the last theme, and a bunch of stuff falls into this. But one thing he said was, you got to think now, but you can't sell the organization short. We've never fully sold out for any 1 year. You have to always think in 2 and 3 year windows. That's how we've done it for 5 straight years. I think it's important to remember when you just think about the schedule, last place schedule, the fact they're hosting the Super Bowl next year. Can you, quote unquote, go all in for 1 year? They've done a good job. I do think this year that was a bad year, but I do think they've done a good job of thinking big picture, not backing themselves in any corners. I think Parag gets credit for that too financially. I don't think they'll back themselves into a corner with Purdy's contract, while also having really good players. So I expect them to. I do expect them to compete next year at a high level for a champ, for the division, for the NFC, maybe for the Super Bowl. But I do expect to go into the year and for them to have a team that looks talented enough to compete for a championship. That's what I expect. He was asked, what'd you learn from the Devondre Campbell thing? He said, well, we already knew. We don't roll with that. I mean, yeah, you don't roll with it when he walks off, but there's no doubt they knew what they were getting into to a degree, and they had to, cut a corner isn't the right word, but they had to get away from who they truly know they are. The evidence was in early. Devondre Campbell made comments to Eric Branch about, like, oh, D. Winters is going to get some snaps. Like, it was weird. Right away, we knew it was a bad fit. We knew going in. I did a whole video about it. I posted it again recently just as like I knew. So I won't do it all here. Javon Hargrave, they're open to having him back. They're cutting him, though. Debo, what's the situation? Quote, Debo's under contract, said John Lynch. He's a good player and has been good for this organization, and we aren't in the business of letting good players go. To me, that's not an answer that gives us any insight. I do not take that as Debo's definitely back. Now, if you've been listening for a while, you know that I've been more on the train of Debo will be back than most. I think it's more likely than most people have thought. Doesn't mean more likely than not. But it's hard to trade him. He's not a tradable player at this point. You're not getting anything for him. We saw at the end of the year, they still go to him. They still value him. He's still a big part of what Kyle does. Kyle values him. So it's going to be very expensive to cut him until later, which they could do, but it's not nothing to cut him. That's a possibility. But I just don't see the trade being a real possibility. And part of that is, remember the reports from the draft? They would have considered trading him at the draft. They considered trading him at the draft. They didn't get any good offers. They're not getting an offer that they would feel good enough. Like, you're not getting a second round offer, let alone a first. And you're not taking a fifth, because the odds that fifth round guy, like, whatever you think of Debo, he's getting a lot of their targets, a lot of their touches. He was asked, John Lynch, any uncertainty about Trent Williams returning? And didn't say no uncertainty, but said Trent's doing well. He's very interested in being a great player. I think he's still a great player. He's committed as ever. So John Lynch may say, no, that was me saying yes. There's no uncertainty. But for me, I want to see it. Ricky Pearsall. He had a huge success this year. He had an incredible year, said Kyle Shanahan. I agree. Here's what I would say, though. Because Shanahan said, he missed all OTAs and training camp. I knew he was going to be behind week 1. And then he had the gunshot wound. I think the way he finished was really impressive. I think the best part about the way he finished was he heads into the offseason with confidence that I can do this. Ricky Pearsall, for a team that doesn't have any momentum other than they're excited that they're going to be resting and they're going to get 14 weeks off before OTAs instead of 8, because Kyle said, last year at OTAs, you could tell some of us, we all wish we had a little more time off. So I do think they're excited to get a rest. But Pearsall is one of the guys that goes into the offseason with momentum, which is important. Confidence is so critical for a young player. And he really does have an opportunity now to build on it. And I think it's a really big deal. I think it's great for him and for them, and it gives him a shot. It gives him a real shot to succeed next year, and it's great for them. Let's also remember the first part of that quote I read you. He missed all OTAs or most OTAs in training camp before the gun. He was going to be behind schedule before he got shot. Why? Because he got hurt. He's got a shoulder that seems to sometimes be an issue. So he's got to be, between now and next season's actual beginning, Ricky Pearsall can answer a significant question, which is, can he stay healthy this offseason? No tweaked hamstrings, no subluxations or whatever the hell. And that's a big deal. Hey, I want to tell you that I'm brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks and the code GUY. When you use the code GUY, you get a $5 and make a $5 lineup. You get a $50 bonus. Bam! Right away. Couple of lineups. The playoffs are here. College and pro. Couple of big lineups. And I showed you one the other day that actually Trey Lance's brother is helping me out in one big lineup I got. But here's a lineup. All right. Things have been going well on PrizePicks. Derrick Henry. I got him more than 99.5 rushing yards against Pittsburgh. He has had a career year. He's been critical to their success. He's played the Steelers twice. He had 162 yards in week 16, 65 in week 11. The last 4 Steeler playoff games, they've allowed more than 106. They're averaging 144 rush yards allowed per game in those playoff games. Zay Flowers, a little banged up, so the Ravens, even more reason to run. I got Russell Wilson more than 201.5 passing yards against the Ravens. The Ravens have been bottom 3 all year long in pass yards allowed, 244. 244 per game. Ravens up early, part of the game script for me. That means Russ is in pass mode to try and get a late comeback. And I got Chris Boswell, more than 6.5 kicking points against the Ravens. He's been the best kicker all season, even above Brandon Aubrey in kicking points, 158. Mike Tomlin's very conservative on 4th downs, often opts to kick the ball. The Steelers are bottom 10 in 4th down attempts. So there you go. There's that lineup. There's one of them. I've got a college football only lineup on Thursday night. I had so many lineups, I can't keep track. Oh, I got Nicholas Singleton from Penn State, less than 61.5 rushing yards. The tight end, Tyler Warren for Penn State, more than 66.5 receiving yards. And I got everyone is down on me, Quinn Ewers, more than 1.5 passing touchdowns against Ohio State. So I got that lineup. And then the lineup I was telling you guys about earlier, I got a big pro college, Bryce Lance, more than half a touchdown hit. That's the only part of the 6-pick flex. $50 pays $1,000. But if I hit 5, I also get money. I got Bo Nix. I'm going Bo Nix less than 222.5 passing yards. First playoff game on the road, Buffalo. Now maybe you got to throw a lot to keep up with Buffalo, so that would be a consideration. I'm going Stroud more than 231.5. I got Riley Leonard, Notre Dame's quarterback, less than 47.5 rushing yards against Penn State. I got Will Howard, less than 247.5 passing against Texas. He's Ohio State's quarterback. And I got Bert Auburn. He's the kicker for Texas. I got him more than half a field goal made against Ohio State. So there is PrizePicks. Use the code GUY, make a $5 lineup, immediately get $50 into your account. whether you win or lose that lineup, bam. Interesting note here from producer Connor, couldn't be with us today. But he said, he sent me a message. He said, I think the Niners really do need to make an adjustment on defense. And the adjustment is, this is good insight. He said the adjustment is they got to pressure. The Niners were 29th in blitz rate this year, 17.7%. They were 27th in pressures, 117 total. He goes, look at these number one defenses in blitz rate. The Vikings were number one, 39%. The Lions were number two, 35%. The Bucks were number three, 34%. The Chiefs were number four, 32%. All of those four teams were top five in pressures this year in the NFL, 171. You want to pressure the quarterback, bring extra guys. Be interesting to see if that's one of the presentations that Kyle Shanahan gets from his defensive coordinator candidates. All right. On that note, thanks for hanging, everybody. Appreciate y'all. And we'll talk soon. Later.